my God. Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. No, I'm doing my thing. Thank you. Ay, Dios mío. Andy, making copies. Oh, good Lord. Hello, and welcome back to Books Yada Yada. I'm Dina, and thank you for watching. So, what I have for you today are 2 reviews and some exciting news. So, stick around for that, okay? It might not be too exciting for you, but it was for me, so. Anyway, first book that we're going to review today is Cersei by Madeline Miller. So, I talked about this in my last video, in my Goodreads tag video. This is the book that I was currently reading. I really enjoyed this book. I finished it last night. And so I'm not going to get too much into the details of the story because this is more of a retelling of Cersei's story. Those of you out there are purists in classic Greek mythology. You may or may not like this book. If you're just getting into Greek mythology, I would highly suggest this book. I was into Greek mythology in high school and just fell in love with the stories. Even throughout my 20s, my youngest daughter was really into Percy Jackson and those books, so I remember reading those with her. This was a Cersei-centric book. So Madeline Miller does a great job of retelling the stories that we all know about Cersei, her being a witch, basically, the first sort of nasty woman, as she has been called by some. And what she does is weaves those stories into the book, her relationship with Odysseus, turning sailors into pigs, yada, yada, yada. So you're going to read about all of that stuff in here, but she kind of takes it in a different direction and gets into Cersei's persona, her personality. She humanized her. And that was really enjoyable because usually the tales we hear of Cersei are just like this evil kind of witch, right? That gets banished from her extremely dysfunctional family. And you do read about that. And we all love reading about dysfunction, don't we? Because it's something to relate to. So definitely relatable because Cersei's kind of the wallflower for a long time, and then she finds out what her powers are and the gods don't like it, and they cast her off onto a desert island, and she spends a very, very long time there. Madeline Miller really paints this beautifully atmospheric depiction of Cersei and her time on this desert island and her isolation, her loneliness, her relationships with other people that come in and out of the island or can't come on and off the island, her relationships with her family. We get a sense of her feelings and sort of her internal struggles. And so that I thought was really cool because, again, we just don't really read that much about her and so this was a reimagining in the sense that we explore Cersei as a person, even though she's not. But she has a incredibly human side to her, creating that sense of longing and wanting to know who she is, self-exploration, And we always think of the gods in Greek mythology as being very very self-centric. But in this case, Cersei is not. So I would highly suggest it. Again, I'm not going to get into a lot of details. There's not a lot to spoil, really, because if you're familiar with Cersei's story, it's all in here. But it's so well done. So I gave this 4 stars. Great book. Pick it up. Read it. So our next book is called Twisted Reunion by Mark Tullius. Now, some of you watched one of my earlier videos I did called Harmony in My Head. just look for that one. And I reviewed his collection of short stories, which was called Untold Mayhem, and it was fantastic. So this is another set or collection of short stories. He is a horror, thriller type writer. His stories are very, very dark. So if you like that kind of thing, you would like Mark Tullius. So I read this in between other books while I was reading Cersei, while I was reading some other books that I started. And it's great because some of the books are or stories rather, are micro stories. They're only like 4 minutes long, maybe like a couple of pages. And he just has this way of fitting so much into this small amount of space. And that's, I think, a really huge challenge. I don't know. Again, I always say I'm a reader and not a writer, so I don't know how he does it. I don't know what kind of magic he's weaving, but he really draws me in, and I get this great experience after I read his stories. So I would highly suggest this collection. Again, Twisted Reunion by Mark Tullius. So this collection has 28 terrifying tales, and I'm reading this off my Goodreads. So we have a pornographer's horrific early morning ritual, a beautiful baby boy who knows what he wants, an engineer sees life on the other side of the tracks. That one was really good. That one was really, really good. I believe it was called Wrong Direction Cafe, or, oh God, sorry, Mark Tullius. I don't have it right in front of me, but I was supposed to write a list of my favorite stories, and I completely forgot to do that. I should be better prepared before I make these videos. I really should. Another story is A Drug Run Gone Awry, a family's unique Christmas tradition, an artist whose paintings become reality, right? So some of these sound familiar to you, like some of these stories. I'm not going to go on and on, but it's loaded with these great stories. Reminds me of a show that was sort of a Twilight Zone spin-off back in, I think, the 70s, and I am trying to remember what the name of that show was because I loved it. Oh, damn it. Night Gallery. Night Gallery. Do you guys remember Night Gallery? Probably not. You're way too young for that. But some of us, more seasoned people. So Night Gallery was this show, a lot like The Twilight Zone, and it was also produced by Rod Serling. They always stuck with me. There were a few in there with like Desi Arnaz Jr. and all kinds of different, actors would pop up and make like guest appearances on the show, and they were just great. So Mark Tullius's Twisted Reunion and Untold Mayhem reminded me a lot of that show, a lot of not so much Twilight Zone, but more Night Gallery, which was a little darker. And I remember, it would come on really late, and for that creep factor. So I appreciate that, and I like writers who kind of make me think of other things from my childhood, or things that TV series, or movies, music, whatever that I've enjoyed, because it just re-inspires me to go back and look at that stuff. Highly suggest Twisted Reunion by Mark Tullius if you really like short stories, which he has definitely brought me back into the short story realm, which I love because I have not read short stories in a while. I haven't found any really good collections. So thank you, Mark Tullius, for bringing me back into the world of the short story, because I am enjoying it thoroughly. So something else I wanted to mention, which is the exciting news part, is that Mark Tullius and I, after I reviewed his book, Untold Mayhem, actually, I reviewed it on Goodreads, and he contacted me on Goodreads, and then I reviewed it on here on YouTube and BookTube, And so we've kind of had this little exchange going on through email, YouTube, Goodreads, his podcast, which is called Vicious Whispers. I've started listening to it. It's really, really good. It is a podcast where he talks about writing, but also he shares some of the stories that he's working on, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mark Tullius, because I know you're going to be watching this. So I've listened to some of it, and he has this amazing narrator who is great with different impersonations. He sounds like LeVar Burton, you know. I actually thought it was LeVar Burton, but does great narration, and these stories are wild. So check it out. I'm going to post a link to Vicious Whispers down below in the description box, so go ahead and check that out. And my exciting news is that Mark Tullius invited me to be a guest on his podcast. So when that airs, which will be soonish, I believe, I will let you guys know, and I hope you stay tuned for that, because I've never been invited to be on a podcast. Well, I did. I was invited to be on a podcast once before to talk about something completely different. It wasn't about books. It was about religious cults. So stay tuned for that. The other exciting news is that how things just sort of come together, right? When I reviewed Mark Tullius's book, Untold Mayhem, it was in the same video as another book called Ink by Jonathan Mayberry. So I did those two reviews in the same video. Well, Mark Tullius knows Jonathan Mayberry. I didn't know that. And he contacted Jonathan Mayberry. So Jonathan Mayberry and I started an email exchange as well. And very excited. He sent me crap. I forgot it in the other room. So I had to go into the other room to get the book. Again, not prepared. So Jonathan Mayberry sent me a signed, I was so thrilled to get this. You can see that. To Dina, enjoy, Jonathan Mayberry, of his book, Glimpse. So I can't wait to read this and review this. I will be reading this next. Right now I'm reading another book, but as soon as I finish that, I will be reading this and reviewing it. So for those of you who are Jonathan Mayberry fans out there, I just got turned on to him, but for those of you who might know him a little bit better or read his other books, stick around, because hopefully we can get some exchanges from the author himself in our comment box. Who knows, you know? So that was the exciting news. So I'm going to be on a podcast with Mark Tullius, and Jonathan Mayberry sent me one of his books, and we've been kind of going back a little bit here and there on Twitter and email. So stick around. I'm going to post what's coming up next. So let's wrap this thing up. Cut.